Good morning. Welcome to the training Form Equals Function. I'm providing this morning because this is a session I'm going to be presenting at the next conference on January 4th. So I wanted to make it available in case people wanted to watch this early and then you don't have to do it on the 4th. You can use your time to watch some other trainings, kind of double dip a little bit. So I was going to present mine a little bit early, but also to allow me an opportunity to practice it. So wanted to share this out there with you guys. It is being recorded and streamed live on Facebook. So thank you for everybody who can attend virtually or live. So again, the topic of this presentation is form equals function. Talking about designing lessons to meet the learning targets and the many different implications to creating those lessons and things we take into consideration as we go through that. So again, my name is Dr. Patrick Jones. There's my email, my Twitter, and my Facebook for the Valley Park Technology Team. So Valley Park School District. So the outcomes are to understand form equals function, what that means related to planning with the end in mind, come up with some lesson design ideas, good processes to use when designing those lessons, talk about the SAMR elements of technology integration, and then how to evaluate, like what's good for teachers to evaluate their effectiveness of the lesson for continuous improvement. So those are some of the topics that we're going to talk about and understandings by the end of the presentation. So form equals function. A traditional architecture phrase is form follows function, but in actuality, it's more, there's not really a cause-effect relationship where form follows function, because function can follow form as well. So it can be interchangeable as you go through that. A good example would be like with a doorknob. So if I design a doorknob, that would be the form, right? When you put it into the door, it kind of determines how you use that on the door to open. The same can be said for if I had a door and I wanted to open it and there was a certain opening, I could design a doorknob to meet that need. So it is interchangeable. It kind of depends on your approach to the problem, whether it is creating the doorknob or creating the door. Either way, it works reflectively. So it's something to consider when you're creating this. So how you design your lesson, whether you're looking at the end in mind and then designing it backwards, or you have a goal in mind and design it forwards. Again, it's reflectively, and the idea is to be intentional through your process. And alignment, making sure you're aligned to where that goal meets that end target with the end in mind. And if you have an end in mind, that your target is meeting that. You see that in PE and athletics a lot, where movement, the movements you make must be in alignment with the performance. And the more that you practice that movement, it builds that muscle memory for that performance. And the better you do it and more effectively and with fidelity, the more you perform in the end. So making sure that if you're in alignment and what you are doing relates from one to the other, whether it's forwards to backwards or backwards to forwards, you're going to perform that movement internally well. So when you're thinking about backwards design, how you work that process, if it's in alignment, there's really going to be an efficiency that's going to help your students and you meet those goals. And then the design of the lesson should relate to the outcome and understand what you want it to be, but understanding how you are delivering that also. So part of the consideration of form equals function is the aesthetics. And in our situation right now with the pandemic, we're online. So trying to understand how that relates, what that medium is within that form and function. Because a lot of times that medium influences that message so much that it becomes the message. If you're using the technology, whether it's Microsoft Teams, it can be easy to make the lesson about Teams. And in reality, it should be in the background. It should not even be noticed. It's just a conduit or a container for the lesson. And the tools within shouldn't be known. Now, it takes a little bit of practice to get to that point. Again, getting back to the alignment. But as you get used to the tools, you don't notice the tools, and then you can really focus on the end and the beginning of those lessons. So try not to make, the medium is the message. So make sure that that message is that it is a tool to be used. So in some of these pictures, you can kind of notice where that's going. If your form is to put all your seats in alignment, in a line, facing forward, then the function is going to be the person up front is the one who's delivering the message. Not a whole lot of collaboration or communication in that environment because it's inefficient for that. Whereas in the picture above it, where you have a round table with chairs around it, it's suited more for collaboration. So again, the form of how it's designed kind of equals that function of what's going to happen inside of there. The same with the bridge. The bridge is an exciting interpretation because the idea is to get someplace. And how that bridge gets there, again, this would be like your communication, your message, your medium. The medium might not be real clean, but it is getting you to where you want to go out there. And it's cobbled together, kind of like a lot of us are doing right now, cobbling things together. But the idea is to get to that end target. And if the goal is to get there, how are we designing it so that we can make it out there? And the trick is knowing where you're going again, having that end in mind, beginning with the end in mind, but also understanding that the form equals that function and the function equals that form. So next is lesson design. So when you're designing that lesson, there's a couple of understandings to make sure you're aware of during that. First one is big ideas, because those are the transferable elements that the students will take with them when they're done. So those are the big ideas. What do you want the students to understand when this lesson is over? And that's where that's very powerful, because it can transfer. It's probably one of the most powerful things we do as teachers is trying to give students the idea, the context, the concept, because then they can apply that to the different contexts that they have and the different experiences outside of our classrooms, those core concepts, right? And to do that, you have to use universal design for learning, because not everybody is the same. So if you have certain principles that are out there that make that instruction or that material accessible for all, you're not, alienating a certain group because of how it's being conveyed. You're allowing an understanding for that. So using principles of universal design for learning will meet those needs that our students need to understand those core concepts. And those are the enduring understandings that the kids take with them. And you can't test that so much on an end of the year test. That's why we deal with the material that we do. But when you look 5-10 years from now with our students and how they're able to apply that, they might not remember that lesson, but they'll remember that concept, especially as they use it in other areas. But it's easy to do that in our own context in the year. We work on a core concept and we develop that and provide those different problems at that time to allow the students opportunities to transfer that knowledge. So the core concepts are the huge ideas that you want the kids to come away with. And then you provide them with some problems, and they can use those concepts to solve those problems. That'd be your math lessons. You teach the concepts of reciprocity and then provide opportunities for them to practice on it. But then you provide them with real world problems that are kind of complex and see how that core concept applies inside of there. And then once you get cross-curricularly, you apply those same concepts outside and into other areas that aren't math, that maybe it's at their home life outside of school, or maybe it's another subject in school, and they transfer that same knowledge in there. So you're developing on those ideas. And then once you can do that and the students see that that knowledge is there, that's what sticks with them. That's the glue that sticks with them. So being able to understand our core concepts for that lesson is the primary element, and then growing off of that and providing students with the opportunities to work together on those. And to use that, a lot of times, especially now, again, with our current environment, we're integrating technology at a rapid pace, almost faster than what we can deliver it. And we're learning on the fly, and students are learning on the fly. And at that point, we are in the SAMR model at the substitution level, right? We're providing technology that helps us do our job because we can't do it in the same way we could. So it's substituting for us being in person, is us using Teams meetings and Zoom and Google Meets to try to meet that need, right? In a very basic way, just substituting out there. And as that becomes more in the background of what we do, it's again, not noticed. Then we can move on to the augmentation phase where it's still there and it's substituting, but because some of those tools are in there that we normally wouldn't have when we're doing it, we can also augment some of our lessons into that to provide some of those functionalities. We have a whiteboard in the classroom, and when we're face to face, we can use that whiteboard. But when we're distance learning, we're substituting, we're using Zoom or Teams to try to convey that message in a distance learning environment. But hey, we pull up the whiteboard that's built into that, and wow, it can be interactive. We can have all the kids contributing at the same time collaboratively. Wow, we can add audiovisual resources onto that whiteboard. We can't do that in the classroom. So you're augmenting some of that experience you would have with some of the tools that are in there. And after that point, then you turn from surviving in what our current context into more of the thriving, where now you're looking at it with a different lens. How can I modify my lessons using technology to take advantage of our current situation? I can redesign this lesson entirely because we have the ability with these new resources to be able to integrate this. We've gone through, we've increased our technology knowledge and our savviness and our interchangeable elements of technology. We can adapt to new tools out there that are only available online and make that be part of the lesson and really expand it out there. Some examples would be like, again, inviting experts in. Wow, I can modify my lesson. Instead of us going on a field trip, wow, I can invite somebody into our lesson to really talk to our team, to our class, to our area, and give us some new understandings that in other times wouldn't be possible because of our schedules or our locations. And then, wow, now we can redefine our lesson, right? We can come up with new tasks and concepts. We can now take that, and we've worked with understanding, substituting with the technology and augmenting it with new tools. We've modified it to maybe have a differentiated element of field trips with experts, but hey, now we can redefine that whole lesson. We can create things, we can create elements that are totally new. We can pull in some of those core concepts and be able to cross element those, and maybe we're the ones that can go out to other areas and spread that message and demonstrate our understanding that's now possible because of the new resources. Now we all have the ability to create a Teams meeting, and we can go to other locations and display our knowledge with other schools, with other areas, and redefine what our education can be to pull in those core concepts and pull in new opportunities for growth. And it's endless on the ideas on that. That's where the insights of the teachers and pulling in the student understandings are just so important, because now you're democratizing that input and everybody can kind of have a say and a stake in where you're going with that. Again, the medium is the message in that one, and the form can be the function. The telephone was a form and it did the job, but now you have a cell phone that can do that same kind of concept and more. So forms and functions. You couldn't video conference on the old telephone and you were tethered with a wire. Wow, so now the form allows a new function. We can increase our abilities beyond what we could before because of technologies and the collaborative elements of it and how things are designed. So now finally is evaluation. When I'm looking at the evaluation of my lesson and my experiences, reflection is intensely needed to be able to have that consistent evaluation of our competencies in there. So to bring in that continuous improvement, we have to see what we've done and we have to see where we're going and how are we along that path. You look and you sit back and you go, what was the purpose of this lesson? So again, end in mind, what was my goal and how did I get there, and did I get there? And what was the path I used to go with that? What challenges do I anticipate with this lesson? So when you're forward thinking on that lesson ahead of time, or do you anticipate coming up afterwards, you know, anticipating some of the challenges will help you be ready for them. You're not going to eliminate them, but at least you can compensate for them, and be ready for when those opportunities hit. They can use those as teachable moments. And how will I know whether this lesson is effective? So what evidence will I have to show that what I have done is meeting the needs of the students? What evidence is there that I was effective? And reflection is huge in that element, because understanding that, talking to others about that, whether it's somebody evaluating you formally or just a peer evaluating, or recording the lesson on a webcam as you're doing it, and sitting back and watching it and watching the interactions and reflecting on that so you can improve it the next time. Those are important. And Simon Sinek talks about reflection.
What role has reflection played in shaping your personal growth?
The ability to look at oneself critically, to say to oneself, you were good in that situation, you weren't good in that situation, you could have been better in that situation. Not to be overly critical, meaning you're always at fault if something goes badly, or not to be so filled with hubris that you think everything you did was fine and it's always the other person, but be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it. You know, when they do sales training, there's, you know, it's always three people. One who pretends to be the salesman, one who pretends to be the customer, and one who observes. And then they all take turns, you know, and the one who does the learning is the observer. So the question is, can you be your own observer? Like, can you replay a situation? And so self-reflection has been huge for me, and I've been huge into it for many, many, many years. The ability to say, okay, I can take some responsibility for the outcome of that, good or bad, yeah, and I can learn to do that again, or I can learn to spot those situations and avoid them in the future.
So again, reflection on a personal level, professional level, is tremendous in our growth as educators, and also providing those reflective opportunities for our students with the core concepts, and they start integrating those cross-curricularly and using those for greater problem solving opportunities in different contexts, and then sitting back and reflecting. The power in the lesson is reflecting upon it and how it made us grow, and areas where we can grow to help after that. That's the evaluation that is needed. Looking at that evidence that's there, the products that are produced, and determining whether it was effective or not, and how it can grow, so that the next time, the next opportunity, next experience, next lesson, can incorporate some of those new understandings. And that is where the form of the lesson and the form of the evaluation can meet the functional needs of those of us that are working on it. Teachers are continuous learners. So the form of the reflection will help us with our function of growth. And the way we want to grow, we have to look at the form of how we want to pull some of that evidence in so that we can continue to grow. So again, form equals that function, and how you design your lessons and your opportunities for learning experiences contributes to the outcomes that the students will experience, and the outcomes you want the students to experience. Understand that we need to design for those elements, understanding the medium that we're using, the concepts we want to build, and the contexts we want to explore for that understanding of those students. So thank you for participating virtually or in person. And if you have, then the presentation on January 4th with the next conference will be similar, but it will also be probably a little more conversational in some of those elements to pull in some areas. So if you do want to participate again and have a little more conversation in it, feel free to join in. Love to have you. But if you are understanding what I'm trying to present here and want to use that opportunity in that time slot to view other presentations for your own personal growth, I appreciate that as well. So thank you for participating, and have a great day.